Okay, I am here today to welcome our very special guest, Dr. Elizabeth Burgin. Elizabeth is here at William and Mary. She is the coordinator for the Clinical Mental Health and Military and Veterans Counseling Program. So we're excited about that anyway. But a special note about Elizabeth is that she is a Tillman Scholar. And so the Tillman Scholarship application is open. It's actually closing on February 28th. So I got really excited about that. I still hope that there's enough time for folks to apply. So I thought we could do a quick interview with Elizabeth and find out a little bit more about the Tillman Scholarship, get motivated to apply to it. And I think we might even have a special offer at the end. But I wanted to just get started by saying welcome to you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. And then if you could just talk a little bit about why you decided to apply in the first place, because that's just fascinating to me. I didn't think about applying when I was a student veteran. I don't know why. I guess I just thought it was for someone else, but you did, and you were right to because you won. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so an interesting part about my application process is that I applied once the year that I was starting my doctorate, and I wasn't selected that year. But I became involved in the foundation in some ways. And the next year was rolling around, and they really encouraged me to apply again and gave me some feedback about my application. And so I was sort of, the Tillman Scholarship was on my radar for a couple of years before I was a successful applicant. And that can be a pretty common experience. I think 17 scholars the year I was selected were also second time applicants. So I think, the thing that brought me into being interested in the Tillman Foundation was the legacy of Pat Tillman and some of the scholars that they shared the stories of those students and their experiences in the military and in continuing their education. It came at a time that Russ and I were decentralized from a major military installation. So he was deployed in Afghanistan, and I moved to Denton, Texas to work on my doctorate. And it was the first time in 10 years I wasn't next to a military installation. And so I sort of felt like a fish out of water, that even though I'd always worked in kind of civilian jobs and I'm a spouse, I wasn't wearing a uniform. I missed the people, I missed the community, and I missed the feeling of collective purpose and identity that really came from being sort of with my military family. And the more that I became familiar with the foundation and their values, the more I really felt like, wow, these are my people. They're, they project this identity of driven, passionate people who serve their communities and who serve the country. And that was everything that I really wanted out of my doctoral program, that I was going back to school for a purpose, and I really wanted to feel connected to that purpose and know that the things that I was doing were not just, bean counting, getting publications for the sake of getting publications or jumping through one hoop after another. It wasn't about the title for me. It was about, what can I actually do? What do I have the power to do when I actually have this degree? And a desire to really connect with other people who had similar values and who similarly also wanted to make sure that the work that they were doing would go back and have a meaningful impact in their community.
Right. And I think you told me a little bit about that. And I think you said, I want to paraphrase you, that that's the real benefit of winning, and so we know it's a scholarship. So we know there's a monetary award, but I think you mentioned that the community was the big selling point for you. So you could just tell us just a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the Tillman Foundation is really unique in that they create a lot of opportunities for scholars to gather. So there are local chapters where scholars get together, and no matter where we've lived in the last several years, there's been a local pocket of Tillman scholars for us to connect to and align with, which is really nice. And last weekend, I got an email saying, hey, there's a soup kitchen in DC that really needs some help today. Tillman Scholars, are you guys ready to go? Do you have plans this Saturday? And so there are experiences like that that are really nice, where you're connecting locally. And then 3 times a year, there are major events that the foundation supports scholars to travel back to. So one is the Pat's Run in Arizona, around the time of the anniversary of Pat Tillman's death. So that happens in April. And then in July, we have a leadership summit in Chicago. And that is 3 or 4 days of listening to people talk about the ways that their careers have progressed. It's getting together and having panel conversations, having think tanks with others who have similar professional interest areas, and just opportunities to collaborate and laugh and let loose. There's sort of an infamous karaoke event that happens at Summit every summer. So, if you apply, be sure to have in the back of your mind what your karaoke go-to song will be, because that will come up. And then the other event that happens in November is the Tillman Honors. And so the Tillman Foundation really emphasizes the power of the community of Tillman scholars, that we're all connected with this common purpose of solving problems in our community, that a lot of people can be passionate and a lot of people can have vision, but the thing that makes the Tillman scholar community really unique is that they're doers, that they make plans, they collaborate with each other, and they really respond to the call to action that they both feel internally, but that also they experience in their local and national arenas. And I think that's the most special part, that I can reach out to a couple of fellow Tillman scholars and say, hey, I have this idea. And by the end of the day, I have 15 emails about what we can do next. And there's just a generosity in the way that Tillman scholars are willing to support one another in small ways, but also in major national ways.
Yeah, and just based on my time working with the Women Marry student veterans, I think they're a perfect fit for that. And, I don't mind to say it, of course I'm biased, but I really do hear from them about the activities that they're interested in. And they're also second to none in terms of being scholars too. And a lot of them are really self-taught in that area. So that's one aspect of the things that they do, is this real active learning and teaching themselves and catching up to their classmates and then surpassing their classmates, because they actually win a lot of awards at Women Marry. But yeah, no, I think they're perfect fits for that, in addition, because there's all these really cool interests that they're engaged in on the side. So not surprised at all to hear that this is an opportunity for them to thrive again in that area, whether it's leadership or community service or whatever. So I looked over the requirements, and I'm going to link the great video that you shared with me in this video, and also in a message. But the deadline's coming up. Is it too late to apply, do you think, for people?
I don't think so. I think especially for students who are already at William & Mary, they've kind of jumped through similar paperwork hoops in the past. And so hopefully, the DD-214 or the LES or whatever proof of service connection you need is something that existed at one time in a hard copy or a digital copy. And I think that tends to be the biggest ask, but because they're already connected with the university, it's likely that those things are somewhere on a hard drive or somewhere that can be scanned and included in the application. And then the other part is answering the personal statements, and those are short. I think they're 400 words each. And while the brevity of them really means that you need to communicate succinctly and really get to the heart of what inspires you to apply. They're not super long, and definitely an area that I'm really willing and happy to help students develop the personal statement component. And then the other big piece is doing a character reference or a character recommendation. And I think something that a lot of scholars or potential applicants are worried about is that character recommendation needs to be someone really high ranking or someone with a lot of power connected to the military system. And that's actually really not the intention of that. The goal of the character recommendation is that it's someone who really knows the applicants well and knows the character of the applicant well. So the values of the Tillman Scholar community are service, scholarship, impact, and humble leadership. And so in the character recommendation, we really want people to speak to scholars' stories and expand on the ways that those values of the organization are demonstrated in the scholar's life. And so I appreciate that this is an organization that has a way of valuing strength of character. It's not about piling up accomplishments, and it's not about who has the fanciest application. It's really about who are you as a person, and what does that mean to your contribution to your local community, to your service identity, and ultimately what will that mean in terms of strengthening the community of Tillman Scholars.
Right. And, one thing that I hope everybody, all the student veterans know is that I'm available to help with, if it's not the character reference, then helping look at those essays. And I hear you offer to be one that that can help with that too, to be a person that the student veterans can contact. So I'll be sure to include your contact information also with the video when I send it out. But yeah, we're available to help. So it isn't just that everybody has to do this in addition to all their classwork in a short turnaround time all by themselves, because that's not the case, because we're a community here too. Yeah, so you said it would be okay if they spoke with you. I think we should just get them this video. That's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to turn this around really fast and send it out to everybody. But I also wanted to give you a chance to talk just a little bit about your day job, because you're a Tillman Scholar, of course, for life now, but you also have another really important role at William and Mary that also serves the military and veteran community. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't say, please tell everybody what it is that you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I am the program coordinator for the Military and Veterans Counseling Program. And so this program is really unique. I don't believe that there is another university in our country that has a program with similar components to ours. So some counseling programs out there in the world offer a strictly online component of focusing on military and veteran mental health, but the program at William and Mary is really cool. We're small, so I take 5 or 6 students every year and work with them very closely. We cover coursework related to military life, culture, and some of the challenges that come with the transitions of military life. And for the veterans who are in my program, they kind of come in having a really good background in what that culture looks like. And so that class is all about, well, how do we take that and conceptualize it in a clinical setting? How do we take the context of the whole military world and look at what matters for veteran and military connected mental health? And we're also really conscious to make sure that we're looking at veterans, we're looking at active duty populations, spouses, and children. And then we're looking at that across the lifespan, because there are a lot of really unique needs that arise during different times in people's lives. And so I'm passionate about that class. We also have an assessment and treatment for trauma disorders course where we really learned specifically about some of the needs that might arise for traumatic exposures that are military connected. And then there's another course about military to veteran transition. And so all of the veterans at William and Mary kind of know what that's like. Even I've experienced little tiny bits of that, like I'm a fish out of water here, how do I exist in this major system and in this organization? And I see it in Russ, my husband, who's been active duty for 10 years, that when you're not within that community of, we have a common purpose and common meaning, and part of something bigger than ourselves. And I know where I need to be and what I need to be doing in order to contribute to, maybe it's just, this next phase of my life. Maybe it's just because I really care and I'm invested in my buddies who serve in uniform. And maybe it's because of the mission, whatever that feeling of purpose is, it can be hard to be missing that, especially in the beginning of transition from wearing the uniform to starting something completely new. And so that course covers that. And then we do clinical internships. And so our students get to go out into the community. And then that's another thing about our program that I'm really proud of, is that we're community engaged. I work with national nonprofits. We're conducting research all the time. We're trying to capture client perspectives. I really want to bring, the humanity of the education process into this program because there can be such a gap in terms of like, here's theory and here's what research says. Well, what does that mean for the human being that you're sitting across from? And after you've had a career in the military, or after you've had these major phases of your life and you're moving into a next phase, like I think we need to be connected to our why and be able to start contributing and getting involved. Our program is really well designed for people who have a professional identity and are ready to go make an impact. And so I love that component of the program. I love that I get to work with student veterans who are my students. I love that I get to work with the veteran and military community around Williamsburg as a counselor and as a clinical supervisor. And I love that we get to take all of that work that we do and distill it into meaningful research and disseminate it across the country and make an impact in that way. So it's unique, I think, that that Williamsburg and William and Mary are close to 11 military installations where we can actually have that engaged experience and be out in the world and kind of do the things that brought us to the mental health field in the first place. And there's so many barriers to getting help, especially for people who are military connected. And I think if you're military connected, you know what some of those things are. But from a practitioner perspective, we have a job too, and our job is to make access wherever we can. And so that's a significant goal of that program, is to ensure that we're doing our part so that when veterans and their families do come to us, we're responsive and we're ready to give them what they need and what they ask for, because my experience is that it takes a lot to get a veteran to ask for something as vulnerable, especially as mental health. And so when they do, we better show up and be ready for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been lucky enough to sit in on a couple of the classes, so thank you for that. I learned a ton, even though I am a student veteran. I was a student veteran twice. I work with student veterans. I've read I've read a lot of the literature about it too, and yet still I'm in there furiously typing, even as a visitor, because there's just so much wisdom that's coming out of these great discussions. So yeah, I definitely think we've all got a lot we can learn from counselors, and some of us are even ready to be those counselors. So that's what you do, is you help train them. So it's super exciting. It's a terrific program, and I'm absolutely proud to have it at William and Mary for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so well, thank you so much for taking this time to spin us up on the Tillman Scholarship. I'll send the video out to everybody, and yeah, thank you for making yourself available as a representative of the Tillman Scholar community, to help us through in the application process. Oh, the other thing I should mention is we are working hard to put on an opportunity to participate in Pat's Run. So there's going to be more information about that a little bit later. So it's just a really exciting time. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, for taking a little bit of time to tell us about it.
Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate the opportunity.